Whispers by the Grave. Part 1. The air smelled like wet earth and old secrets. Grey clouds hung low over the village of Varham, shrouding the cemetery in a fog that seemed to cling to the bones of the dead. Caleb stood beside the freshly turned soil of his grandfather's grave, his hands shoved deep into the pockets of his too large black jacket. The service was over, the mourners had left, and even the priest had mumbled his final prayers and disappeared into the mist. But Caleb stayed. He wasn't sure why. He hadn't been especially close to his grandfather. Not really. The old man had lived alone in a wooden house near the edge of town, the kind that looked like it had been stitched together with rot and memory. He had never been warm, never soft, just distant, like someone who knew the world was a dark place and saw no point in pretending otherwise. Still, the finality of the grave unsettled Caleb. He shifted on his feet, the mud squelching beneath his shoes. The headstone was simple. Samuel Ryden, 1936-2023. Beloved father and grandfather. Caleb snorted at the word beloved. Maybe to his mother, maybe once to someone. A movement caught his eye. Across the cemetery, near the crooked iron fence that marked its border, a woman stood watching. She was hunched and wrapped in layers of shawls that looked like they hadn't been washed since the Cold War. Her skin was leathery, her hair white and uncombed, hanging in long strands over her shoulders. She didn't blink, didn't move, just stared. Caleb frowned. "Creepy," he muttered. As he turned to leave, a whisper tickled his ear. "Don't leave him alone." He spun around. No one. The wind rustled the trees. The birds were silent. He glanced back to the spot where the old woman had been. She was gone. The walk back home was short but tense. Every time Caleb passed a tree, he expected to see her behind it. The fog had thickened, curling around the gravestones like pale fingers. The town of Varham always had a strange stillness to it, but today it felt more like a silence that was listening. His house wasn't far, a squat two-story place on the edge of the woods. His mother's car was still gone. She worked late these days, trying to juggle bills and grief all at once. Caleb dropped his jacket on the floor and climbed the stairs to his room. Posters of bands he no longer listened to lined the walls. A half-finished sketchbook lay open on the desk, and a photo of his grandfather sat in the silver frame beside it. He had no idea why he'd put it there. He stared at the photo. The old man's eyes were sharp, suspicious. Caleb had never seen a picture of him smiling. A chill crept down his spine. He pulled the curtains shut and dropped onto the bed, trying to shake the image of the woman at the cemetery. That night, he didn't sleep. He kept thinking about the dream, the whisper, the photo, the grave, the roots. At 2:11 a.m., he got out of bed, dressed, and grabbed a flashlight. He was halfway out the door before doubt crept in. Was this madness, or was there truth in the old woman's words? Either way, the questions were worse than the fear. He crossed the empty street, the cemetery waiting like a mouthful of stones. He found his grandfather's grave easily. The dirt was still loose. He hesitated. Then he saw them, small, pale shapes moving just beneath the soil. Worms? No. Fingers. Thin, writhing fingers, sinking down as if pulling something deeper. Caleb's flashlight slipped from his hand. It hit the dirt with a soft thud, casting twisted shadows across the headstone. That's when he heard it again. A whisper. But this time, it was his grandfather's voice. "Why did you leave me?" The next morning, his mother made pancakes. It was strange. She only made pancakes when she was feeling guilty or nostalgic, or both. "You didn't come straight home yesterday," she said, flipping one with forced cheer. "I waited for you." "I stayed at the cemetery," Caleb said quietly. She looked up, surprised. "Why?" "I don't know, just did." She poured syrup slowly. "I used to do that too. When your grandma died, I used to sit by her grave and wait for her to talk to me." "Did she ever?" he asked. His mother smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "No, but it helped to pretend." Caleb nodded, though something inside him said otherwise. Pretending wasn't the same as hearing. He thought about telling her about the old woman, the dream, the handprint, but something stopped him. Instead, he asked, "Who lives near the cemetery?" His mother stiffened. "Why?" "There was a woman there, old, white hair, wore a bunch of shawls. She was just standing there, watching." Her face paled. "That's just Agatha," she said after a long pause. "She's not well. She lives in the shack near the southern gate. People say she used to be the gravekeeper's wife. Her son died in the war. She never really came back after that." "She said something," Caleb added. "Something weird." His mother's eyes met his. "Don't talk to her," she said, voice firm. "She's not safe." But the warning only made him more curious. That afternoon, after school, Caleb returned to the cemetery. The fog had lifted, but the sky remained grey and heavy. Crows hopped between gravestones, pecking at nothing. He didn't go to his grandfather's grave this time. Instead, he followed the perimeter, heading toward the south gate. The shack was almost hidden behind ivy and trees. Its roof sagged, and one of the windows was covered with a wooden plank, nailed in an X. He stepped closer, his breath frosted in the air. "Hello?" he called. The door creaked open. She stood in the threshold, just as before, stooped, draped in mismatched shawls, her eyes sharp like broken glass. "You came," she whispered. "You're his blood." "Whose?" She pointed toward the cemetery. "The one they buried, the one who never left." "My grandfather." She nodded slowly, eyes never blinking. "He was marked. So are you. I think you've got the wrong—" "They whisper to you, don't they?" she interrupted. "In the dark. When you're alone. They've begun already." Caleb took a step back. I should go." She didn't stop him. But as he turned away, she said one more thing. "Check under the roots. The grave was never deep enough." That night, he dreamed of dirt. He was buried alive. He couldn't move, couldn't scream. The earth pressed against his chest, filling his lungs. Somewhere above, he heard footsteps. Then a soft voice, hoarse, ancient. "He's not done yet. He's not done yet. He's not—" Caleb woke up, choking. His sheets were damp with sweat. The room was cold, too cold. He glanced at the thermostat, 16 degrees CS, but it felt colder than outside. He got up to close the window, but it was already shut. Frost crept along the glass. Then he saw it, a handprint on the inside of the window, long, thin fingers, smudged like ash. He backed away slowly, every nerve buzzing. Was it his? No, it was too big, too long. Caleb didn't sleep the rest of the night. Caleb didn't go to school the next morning. He couldn't. He sat on the edge of his bed, still wearing last night's clothes, staring at his hands like they didn't belong to him anymore. He kept hearing the whisper, that voice, his grandfather's voice. "Why did you leave me?" But it wasn't just guilt or imagination. He felt the voice, like it had pressed into his skin, like it had left something behind. Downstairs, the kitchen clock ticked loudly, too loudly. Every second banged through the walls like footsteps. His phone buzzed, a message from Jonah, his only real friend. "Yo, you good? You vanished after the funeral. LMK." Caleb didn't respond. He went to the bathroom instead, splashing water on his face, gripping the edge of the sink. That's when he saw it, in the mirror, behind him. A shape, pale, lean, standing just outside the door. He turned instantly, nothing. But in the mirror, it lingered for 1 second longer, before fading like smoke. Caleb backed away, heart pounding, hands trembling. He almost called for his mother, but the thought of trying to explain what he just saw felt even more terrifying. He couldn't stop thinking about what the old woman had said. Check under the roots. The grave was never deep enough. What did she mean? Was something buried there besides his grandfather? Or something not buried deep enough? His mind raced with images. Bones under trees, sealed boxes, old sins clawing their way back up. That afternoon, Caleb took a shovel from the garage. He didn't tell his mother. She would never understand. He waited until dusk again, when the light bent weirdly and everything looked a little less real. The cemetery was quieter than usual. Even the wind had stopped. He approached his grandfather's grave, scanning the area for anyone, especially the old woman, but there was no one. The headstone stood still, cold. The fresh earth lay heavy, though it had already begun to settle into the surrounding soil. He didn't dig on the grave. He dug behind it, near the base of a twisted tree, where its gnarled roots snaked into the ground like petrified worms. The tree leaned slightly, its bark split in places like cracked skin. With each scoop of earth, Caleb's hands shook more. Nothing, more dirt. Then, a clink. Something solid. He cleared the dirt carefully, heart pounding. It was a small, rusted tin box, about the size of a lunchbox. Its lid was etched with something faint and almost invisible under rust and mud. S.R. Samuel Ryden, his grandfather's initials. He swallowed hard. The box wasn't locked, but it resisted him. The hinges were swollen with rust. It took a few tries, but it finally creaked open. Inside, a Polaroid photo. His grandfather as a young man, standing in the same cemetery, next to an open grave. But there was someone else in the photo. A tall, dark figure, just behind him, barely visible, half faded, like it wasn't fully there. A yellowed letter, folded tightly, and a small black stone, smooth, oval, almost like it had been polished, but freezing to the touch. He took the letter out last.
To whoever finds this, they won't let me leave. I thought I could bury them, but the land remembers. The earth does not forgive what was stolen. If you are my blood, they will come for you next. Whatever you do, do not answer them when they call. Do not speak back, even if it sounds like me. Especially if it sounds like me. I am already gone. Hi.
Samuel Ryden. Caleb couldn't move. His skin crawled. His grandfather knew. He knew something was wrong with the land, with the cemetery, and he had tried to hide it. But now it was awake again. And he had heard it. He had answered it. He had spoken back. That night his dreams turned violent. He wandered the cemetery again, only this time it was inverted. The graves were on the sky, and he walked on darkness. Roots hung down like veins. He heard voices, familiar and unfamiliar. Some whispered in a language he couldn't understand. Others mimicked the voices of people he knew, Jonah, his mom, his grandfather. But the worst part? They were calling him by name, over and over. Caleb, Caleb, Caleb. He tried to run, but his legs sank into the floor like wet concrete. One of the voices grew louder, clearer. It was his mother. Come home, I'm waiting for you. He turned and saw her. Standing at the edge of a pit. Her eyes were gone, just dark, empty holes. Her mouth smiled too wide. Then she opened her arms and began to float toward him. He woke up gasping. The house was silent. No creaks, no wind, not even the fridge hum. Caleb sat up slowly. The black stone from the box now sat on his nightstand. He hadn't brought it in. He'd left it in the garage, in the toolbox. He stared at it, heart hammering. It pulsed, very faintly, like it was breathing. He put it back in the box and duct-taped it shut, then hid it in the basement under a pile of old winter clothes. Still, he felt like it was watching him. That morning, when he told his mom about his grandfather's connection to the cemetery, she froze. He never went there, she said, setting down her coffee. He avoided it, refused to go to anyone's funeral, said cemeteries were liars. Liars? Caleb asked. She nodded slowly. He said they buried the truth. Later that day, Jonah finally showed up. You look like you haven't slept in a week, he said bluntly. I haven't. Caleb told him everything. Well, almost everything. He left out the stone, the floating dream, the thing in the mirror. But he described the box, the letter, the photo. Jonah listened without mocking, just silent, eyes narrowing. When Caleb was done, Jonah said something that made his blood run cold. My dad said something that made his blood run cold. My dad said something once, Jonah muttered, about your grandfather, that he saw him dig something up in the cemetery once, at night, alone. Said your grandfather looked afraid. That evening, Caleb went back to the cemetery. This time, not to dig. This time he wanted answers. He found Agatha, the old woman, sitting on a tree stump near her shack, mumbling to herself. He approached slowly. "Why me?" he asked. "Why now?" She looked up at him with eyes that shimmered like wet glass. "Because you're his blood, the debt never left." "What debt?" She didn't answer. Instead, she pointed behind him. He turned and saw nothing, but when he turned back, Agatha was gone, as if she had never been there. Only her voice remained, echoing in his head. "They know your name now. You belong to the soil."